Once upon a time, there was a man who lived a great deal of thought and time and effort to determine what he wanted from his life. Then one day a door opened for him to actually live his dream. But the opportunity would be available only for a short time, and he would have to embark on a long journey. He began walking and grew more and more excited as he envisaged his future, his dream becoming a reality. As he hurried along, however, he came to a bridge high above a dangerous, rapidly flowing river. As he started to cross the bridge, he noticed a stranger approaching from the other side. The man had a rope wrapped around his waist many times. The rope looked like it might stretch to at least 30 feet. The stranger began to unwrap the rope as he walked towards. Just as the two men were about to meet, the stranger said, "Pardon me, sir, would you be so kind as to hold the end of this rope for me?" And without thinking, almost instinctively really, the man reached out and took it. "Thank you," said the stranger, and then added, "2 hands now, and hold tight." At that point, the stranger jumped off the bridge. The strong pull from the now extended rope was so strong, it almost dragged the man over the side of the bridge into the treacherous river below. He shouted over the railing, "What are you trying to do?" "Just hold tight," the stranger called back. This is ridiculous, the man thought, and he began trying to haul the stranger back up, but the task was beyond his strength. "Why did you do this?" he yelled in frustration over the edge. "Remember," said the stranger, "if you let go, I'll die." "But I can't pull you up," the man cried. "I am your responsibility," said the stranger. "I didn't ask for that," the man said. "Well, if you let me go, I am lost," repeated the stranger. The man began to look around for help, but there was nobody within sight. He began to think about his predicament. Here he was, eagerly pursuing a unique opportunity to fulfill his dream, and now he was being sidetracked for who knew how long. "Or maybe I can tie the rope somewhere," he thought. He examined the bridge carefully, but there was no way to get rid of his newfound burden. So again he yelled over the edge, "What do you want?" "Just your help," came the answer. "How can I help? I can't pull you in, and there's no place for me to tie the rope off while I find someone else to help you." "Just keep hanging on," replied the dangling stranger. "My life is in your hands." The man was stumped. If I let go, all my life I will always regret that I let this stranger die. If I stay, I will never reach my dreams or destiny. Either way, this will haunt me forever. Time passed. Still, nobody came along. The man became keenly aware that it was almost too late for him to resume his journey. If he didn't leave immediately, he wouldn't arrive in time. Finally, a new idea came to him. "Listen," he explained to the man hanging below. "I think I know how to save you." He couldn't pull the stranger up solely on his own efforts, but if the stranger would shorten the rope by wrapping it round his waist again and again, together they could do it. But the dangling man had no interest. "You mean you won't help?" he shouted to the stranger. "I can't hold on much longer. If you don't, I'll die," came the reply. At this moment, a revelation came to the man on the bridge. An idea that until this moment he would never have considered. "Listen carefully," the man said. "I mean what I'm about to say." The dangling stranger looked up, hopeless and despondent. "I will not accept the position of choice for your life, only for my own," the man said. "From this moment on, I give the power of choice for your life back to you. What do you mean? The stranger asked carefully and clearly afraid. I mean, simply, it's up to you. You decide your future. I will be the counterweight. You do the pulling and bring yourself up. I will tug as much as I can from here. The man unwound the rope from around his waist and braced himself to be the counterweight on the bridge. You cannot mean what you say, the stranger shrieked. You would not be so selfish. I am your responsibility. What could be so important that you'd let me die? After a long silence, the man on the bridge said slowly, I'll accept your choice. And he let go of the rope and continued on his journey over the bridge.
It's quite a story, isn't it? Thankfully, it's only a story, okay? It's a story that Pete Scazzero mentions in his book, The Emotionally Healthy Discipleship, that we're basing this series on. But it's really quite hard-hitting, isn't it? What would you have done? You see, for all the 110 percenters, for all the Debbies in the house, we've mentioned Debbie a lot because she's not here today, all the amazing, ultra-caring, lovely people, all the fixers in the room, what a nightmare situation to be in. I wonder what experiences and people came to mind in your life while you were listening to that. What has holding onto the rope for other people cost you in your energy and your money, your headspace, your worry, your sleepless nights over the years? Perhaps you've even had a wake-up call and thought, wow, I think I'm possibly the person on the end of the rope. I see some of that in me. I've done that to other people, and I've possibly handed my life's responsibility to others wrongly. And if that is you, we'd encourage you to pray and talk to someone and maybe apologise and get some advice, or I don't know, but do something. Do something. Now, I'm sure at some point in our lives we've all been that man on the bridge with someone trying endlessly to pull dangling people up. I mean, what would Jesus do? We're not saying let everybody die at all. Jesus would never expect that of us. The Bible would not say that. But I mean, what would Jesus do? You see, because we want to help. Jesus calls us to, as Christians, a life of generosity and self-sacrifice. Sometimes, though, it can feel like everywhere we look, there's another rope. There's another person. There's another dangling person on a rope. I mean, the Good Samaritan came to the rescue of how many? One. But there have been times in ministry, times in our families, times in our working lives, times in our school lives when we've looked around the classroom, and there have been times in our lives when we can feel that we don't even want to look at the amount of people we see in need of our help, looking to us to fix it. Too many ropes, too many good causes. I mean, I've got my limits. Anybody else got their limits? Ever thought or heard or screeched those words of to heal with you? And to be honest, we can feel sometimes so stretched that we're at the end of our own life. So much to do, so little time. Once, our own spiritual and emotional health can lie in tatters simply sometimes because we've overstretched ourselves, thought we could do everything for everyone, smashed through any healthy boundaries that we ever did manage to put in place, and we've forgotten that we are still only wonderfully human. Here's the thing. God is in charge. He's in charge. God is God, and you and I are not. We are not. And God has given you the gift of limits. The gift of limits. We see limit as a negative word, don't we? For the drivers of us, like myself, who like a little bit of speed, like to get where we're going, limits are a nightmare, are they not? You get a bit of open road and suddenly you think, oh, a limit. I don't like speed limiters. If you've got speed limiter on your car, I don't know where that button is. I really don't. But on vans that you you're higher over the years, there's a speed limit on you. You're just lovely, about to overtake somebody, and you're heading towards 60, and suddenly you get to hit the 60, and somebody's taken over the pedals for you, and you can't suddenly pass the van or the person that you're overtaking, and it takes over for you and slows you down gently. Rude. Don't like limiters. Children. I don't like children. I do. I like children. Children need clear and consistent limits, don't they? It helps them to feel secure. Yes, you do. They need to feel secure, no matter how much that they may resist at times. I'm glad that my parents put limits in for me. It wasn't because they hated me or didn't want me to enjoy my life. They weren't killjoys. They wanted me to live well in those limits. But you know, from day one, Adam and Eve enjoyed incredible freedom and relationship with God, but with just one limit, just one boundary. Genesis 2:16-17 says, "Eat the fruit from this tree," God says, "and guess what? You'll die." And God wanted them to trust him in this, trust me in this. Everything else, go for it, enjoy. But on this one thing, trust me. Yet instead of receiving God's gift of limit, they got tempted. They chose to disobey. They chose to be unlimited. And the consequences of their choice are plain to see all around us today. We have this tendency, don't we, in our DNA still, to push the limits of ourselves, our relationships, our working lives, our families. We push the limits, and we misunderstand the benefits of limits and freedom. So on the other hand, you've got Jesus. He's in the wilderness. He's tempted to miraculously turn stones into bread to survive. He's been tempted to do that to demonstrate his power. So then he's tempted to trade everything in, but he doesn't. He waits. He embraces, this is God embracing Father God's timing and limits. 3 times in the wilderness, he embraces God's limits. All through his ministry, Jesus embraces limits with contentment and peace. He could have healed everybody, couldn't he? He could have, just like that, not a problem. He could have met everybody's needs. He could have travelled to Europe. He could have travelled into Africa. He didn't. He stayed local, limited. He could have called hundreds of disciples to follow him as a rabbi. He chose to example life and teach, how many? 12. 12 people who left everything to follow. He didn't chase everyone endlessly because they wanted to hand him their responsibility rope. Hear this, folks. It is impossible to accept every rope that people try to hand you. So many church leaders, so many colleagues, so many lovely, well-meaning Christians have become bitter, frustrated. They've left the ministry, even left the church, often through burnout, because they haven't understood God's gift of limits. We all have our limits. So how do we ensure that we are emotionally healthy disciples of Jesus? As we heard from James last week, we be before we... 3 of you were here last week, that's really great. The rest of you can watch it again on YouTube, on our channel. And so we recognise that we also have 2 kinds of limits. We be before we do, and we have to remember there are 2 limits, 2 kinds of limits. There are limits in our lives that we need to joyfully accept, and there are limits in our lives that we need to break through. King David had the money. He had the workforce all lined up. The heart of the people, he got the heart of the people to build a temple to the one true God and outshine all his neighbouring kings and nations' temples to their pagan gods. This was what he was expected to do. He was in danger, though, of looking weak if he didn't do it. The people, the practicality said yes, and you know what? God said no. And David chose to surrender to God's no, to God's limit. Psalm 115 says, he says this, our God is in heaven. He does whatever pleases him. In other words, I'm going to align my choices to his choices, and I'm going to accept it. I don't know why he says no right at this moment. I have no idea that what he's planning or what's a 10 mile down my road, but I'm going to accept that. His no is no, so we're not going to build the temple, folks. I'm sorry, that's it. And like David, we have to learn to skip to God's beat. Embrace his limits, trust that he is good, trust that he sees the bigger picture for us when we don't, and that he really has a grip on it all. You see, we all have our own set of limits. Like Adam and Eve, our natural default will always be to push against them. And there are 6 key areas of life that we might want to just consider this week as we consider limits. I wonder, what are the limits of your personality and your temperament? Are you introvert? Am I introvert? Am I extrovert? Maybe a bit of a mix of the two. Do you bounce off people? Do your energy levels come up with people? Or do people just drain the life out of you and you'd rather kind of just spend some time on your own and perhaps a little bit more? Are you spontaneous? Are you creative? Or are you orderly and controlled? Or are you shy? Are you bold? There are limits of our personalities. We're all made so different. It's okay. What are the limits of your current season of life? It's a God-given limit, isn't it? Ecclesiastes 3 tells us that there is a time and a season for what? Everything under the sun. Remember, the good thing about seasons? They come and they go. I love the changing seasons. I love that summer's pretty much over there. I'm ready for autumn because I've got bored of summer now. I like the change. I couldn't live in a country where we just have one season all year or 2 seasons. I love the changes of season. And if you're in a particularly difficult season right now, personally or as a family, just hear this. Seasons come and seasons go. There will be an end to that season, and God is with you in every season. Perhaps you're in a season where you've got family at home and you just want to talk normal. You want to talk to the kids about kids and nappies and, oh man, family members perhaps you've got with special needs. Perhaps you've got aging parents who need you now more than ever. There are seasons, aren't there, when our finances limit us. There are seasons when our intense work and study seasons, they limit us. Our poor health seasons limit us. Seasons we just have to step back from some responsibilities, but step back from them well in a measured way, rather than just throwing in the towel and dumping everybody and everything. And we just need to take time and grieve the loss of those seasons and those things that we once were able to do so freely. What are the limits of your marriage or your singleness? You see, they're both wonderful, but both will have their limits. And we need to ask ourselves, how do we lead our lives? How do we follow Jesus well out of a healthy marriage or out of our healthy singleness, appreciating the season that we are in at the time for Jesus? What are the limits of your emotional or your physical or your intellectual capabilities? I've said it before a number of times already, we're all so different. It's okay. Find your strengths and play to them. I've got colleagues who eat theological books before breakfast. What is that? Just watch the rain. Be normal. I have colleagues who eat theological books. I have colleagues who run 5 miles before breakfast. Anybody else do that? Carol? Anybody? 5 miles before? What are you doing? But it energizes them. I can think personally of nothing worse to recharge my batteries ready for the day. Some of you love sitting in front of a computer number crunching, data analysts and all of that. I don't know how you do it, but you're built that way. You like it. Well, I think you do. You like it. I need a mix of admin and computer and a mix of people and to be able to work. I'm a juggler really, I think. And I love a bit of everything in my day and my week. I'm 54. My physical limits are showing. a lot at the moment. I'm waiting for new knees. I just bossed in for any knee they'll give me, to be honest. Any donations hopefully required, accepted. And I don't like to admit my limits. As I say, I'm waiting for new knees in my head. I can still ski. I can still play sports that I once did. I can still walk the dogs for miles around the village. Reality is, I cannot even mow the lawn right now. And I'm about to get very bitter and twisted about that. And annoying to everybody I meet. I can't do the big shop right now. Thank God for Asda deliveries. But you see, as we get older, we have to repace. We have to embrace limits, whether it's new needs or something else. We have to pass on some mantles. We have to find grace for the day. We have to find joy and purpose in the season we're in. I have good friends who didn't make it to 54. Anyone else? It's a privilege to be alive with grotty knees and hopefully a joyful spirit. What are the limits of your history? Your family story. You might feel that because of a tough start or a rocky road or a terrible trauma in your past that you feel like you're always playing hard to catch up with the rest of the world. But you know something? God sees you differently to that. God can turn your inherited limits to gifts, grace gifts. So that once we embrace them, once we face them, we can, with His help, become more gracious, more sensitive, less judgmental of others, and so on. What are your limits? What are your limits of time? You see, my time on here is running out. You're going to think, oh, she's depressed, isn't she, today? It's true, isn't it? My time is running out. I've got so much to do and so little time. Places to go, and I've got places and people to see. Every decade of our lives thrust us into new and different types of limits. Psalm 90 tells us to be wise about our time and our use of it. Teach us, it says, to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. You know, one of the indicators that we're on the road to spiritual maturity is when we live joyfully within our God-given limits. Don't resent them in yourself and others. Do that, and we sit in resentment and frustration and disappointment, and we bark at everybody, and we get angry. And we live our lives on empty, on the brink, trying to give what we've never had to give. Folks, on the other hand, there are limits that we need to break through. The 12 disciples, they weren't educated, they were poorly educated. They were much more brighter people that Jesus could have picked. They weren't naturally gifted. They weren't well networked. They had no leadership experience. They'd never been on a course, never been to Willow Creek or anywhere else, and nobody had ever prepared them to lead the most important movement in human history. No one. 90-year-old Sarah in the Old Testament, Elijah, a depressed prophet, Timothy, naturally young, fearful, shy, Mary, a teenager from a poor family and place that no one had ever heard of. God asked them to break through their limits. He used them in extraordinary ways when they broke through their limits in faith and when they put their hand in His and trusted what He said. When they said yes to Him, when they said, I'm willing to graft, I'm willing to walk this harder road, I'm willing to pace with you, Holy Spirit, rather than run ahead of you in my head and every other way. I'm willing to work on my character weaknesses. I'm willing to work on my fears. I'm willing to step out of the box here. I'm willing not to just do what I prefer naturally to do. And they moved on past their immaturities to become the people that God needed them to be for His kingdom. What about us? Do you know, 2 Sundays ago, I left church. Not left church, I wasn't that depressed. I just went home, all right? I left church, and I collected my aging parents. And we started out on what was a 600-mile drive to the west coast of France so that they could meet some good old French friends of over 40 years now. They can't now drive there on their own. And so I was doing a kind of a mix of working remotely and taking a break with my parents. It was going to take a day and a half. A day and a half. A day, I still can't work it, a day and a half to get there. Additional toilet breaks, a day and a half. A night in Dover, a ferry. I tell you, I was tired at the start of it and the thought of it. As soon as we get onto the M42, we end up in a standstill for an hour. I'm thinking 2 days. My dad's navigating all the way. You sure it should be on the M4? The M4 is much better out to Dover. I'm just going to follow sat nav, Dad. You sure not the M4? If you cut across here, you get to the M4. Like Dad. The roads are congested. Sunday afternoon traffic. It's the worst consistently heavy rain I have ever driven in my whole life. The whole 5 hours to Dover. 5 hours to 3 3/4 from our house. 5 hours to Dover. We discovered that their French friend in France waiting for us. He's now got COVID. The week's plans had to change. There's a force 9 gale forecast, but we decided to go ahead anyway. I put aside my fear of the tunnel, and because at least if you're on a boat, you've got a chance, haven't you? Yeah, that's my thinking. How stupid is that? So we get the tunnel, we share the compartment, right, with a famous man, and I can't remember his name. That's how bothered I am. Anyway, what was his name? Guy what?
Martin.
Guy Martin. Anybody know? He's not that famous, is he? Yes, Guy Martin and his family in his old Volvo right behind us in the tunnel. Yeah. Anyway, we've got his all right. So yeah, we're in the tunnel. We buy tickets to the tunnel. Another 192 quid. Right. So I'm up to my limit, financial limit coming up, and I put aside my fear of the tunnel. We buy tickets to the tunnel. We chuck the ferry ticket, and then we get as far as Maidstone services. Anybody been to Maidstone services? Please don't use cubicle 9 for a good few more weeks. Because at that point, I was as sick as a dog. I got struck by the worst bout of sickness I have ever had. I am stuck in a service station cubicle for 30 minutes. My elderly parents have to come and find me. Helen, are you there? I'm stuck in this cubicle for 30 minutes with nothing but a toilet one side and a dog poo bag the other. I'll let your head go there yourself. I'm not going to say any more. Turns out there's a hotel right next door. So I managed to stagger over to this. We buy 2 more rooms, right? So these are the 4 rooms now between here and Dover. The Channel Tunnel ticket, the ferry ticket, limit. We ditched the hotel at Dover. We're just 40 minutes away, buy 2 more rooms, and I bravely leave the safety of my wonderful cubicle. The costs are mounting. I'm thinking I'm at my limit. I don't think I can do this. Maybe this is God's way of saying we shouldn't go. Maybe you think, wouldn't you? Everything was stacked against us. Maybe. Cut our losses. We'll go again. We'll go next year. Next day, I'm feeling better. So we continue. We lose past my dad. He's there. If you know what I mean, 84-year-olds. I can't put this on the internet, otherwise you'll be listening, right? So we cut our losses. We don't cut our losses. We lose passports. We lose 500 euros. At one point, I lost my dad. By the end of the week, I lost him twice. I never found him again. And eventually we arrived at our home for the week down in France. It turned out, to be a really important week for me to have with my parents. If you've got elderly parents or have had elderly parents, you know how important these times are. Work often has been my problem and has got in my way. I got a visual on their day-to-day capabilities, and more importantly, it became most clear to us why we had to break through those limits. We had lived out our lives as Christians in front of our lovely French friends, a family of people, for 40 years. For 40 years, they didn't want to know about Jesus or our Christian faith. On this visit, they did. They did. Dad stood at the grave of his friend who died last year, and he said, "Is it okay if I cry?" These people don't do that. And he stood at the grave. I took a photograph of him. What a moment. And you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was so moved, despite not understanding all of his English. At the dinner table, their daughter asked us questions about faith, about you. Another daughter has now found a friend to be a Christian. And she's investigating faith. She's reading UCB Word for Today. We needed to push through the limits, folks. I needed to get out of that cubicle quicker than you know. We needed to be there. You see, if we're going to be, before we do, we are going to have to embrace God's gift of limits and also break through other limitations that we place on ourselves and accept the challenge to grow as healthy disciples with the call of God on our lives. We, as a church leadership, we as a church believe that, don't we? Firstly, I think we need to be looking out for ourselves. I've always been taught, Jesus first, others next, yourself last. Yeah? Nothing wrong with that. Trouble is, I never got round to looking after me very well. We need to, take advice, like on the airplanes, don't we? Put your own oxygen mask on first. If you've got children, you put your own oxygen mask on first in an air emergency, so you have the strength and the capacity to look after people around you in your care. As leaders, staff, volunteers, we have very different gift mixes. As church people looking around this room, we're all so different. We'll always be generous with our time, treasure, and our talents, but we all have our limits, don't we? Within the ever-changing seasons of our lives, we have our limits. We know that a Sabbath time is vital. Pausing for prayer and devotion is vital. It's not an option, an opt-in. Maintaining a delicate balance in our family and our work lives is vital. If Christ's life is going to flow out of us into our everyday, ordinary lives and conversations, all these things, self-care is vital. Doing for Him has to be rooted in being with Him. Full of peace, full of joy. I've loved spending time with our elders and our staff over the last couple of years, just hanging out and learning alongside them, retreat days, conference days, etc. When Stuart comes to speak to us in a couple of weeks' time, one of our national leaders, we as a team will stop. We're not going to take up a Saturday. I'm not going to take these lovely people away from you, their families, for another day over a 2-day weekend. The work and everything else crowds that in, doesn't it? So we're going to just spend lunch and have some training, additional training over lunch on Sundays together. Healthy limits. It's not that we don't do it, it's not that we don't look after ourselves, but we've got healthy limits around us. So we need to look after ourselves first. Self-care. No one else will do it. It's your responsibility. Secondly, in any group, in any church, from time to time, there will be somebody who needs reparenting. There might be gossipers, there might be negative, there might be moaners. They might take over a small group and make it all about their problem, not just one week, but week after week after week. Maybe they set themselves up as an unofficial leader. You know, we've all had people like that in church life and in families. They're speaking words and teaching stuff to people you never hear from these people. People can be manipulative, can't they? They can use people behind the scenes for their own ends and unwilling to change their destructive behaviours. People who will ignore your boundaries and mine, and the church's boundaries. Unwilling to help themselves back up onto that bridge. You see, folks, church is an open door. It'll always be an open door. But should always be a place that is safe for everyone as they investigate and grow in faith. It's biblical, it's Christ-like to have pastoral limits around certain people in church life as they step up and away from their past. I've been in prison this morning. You'll be glad one or two of those fellas, probably, are over that side of the wall, not this. But you know something, when they get out, they'll be welcome. But there'll be some pastoral care and pastoral limits in place so that they can grow past where they've been into all that God needs them to become. Yes? And we'll journey that with them. But there will be pastoral limits, healthy limits, that will help them to grow and ensure that you, us, the kids, we're all safe. Sorted. Love requires setting boundaries. You know that with your own family, your own house. It's no different in God's family and his house. And thirdly, over the years, I know I have answered the phone, replied to the emails too late at night, and in the middle of family events and holidays. I know. And I said yes too many times to things that I should have said no to. Do you know, I even ended up on a crash rover once. What was that? I chose not to have my own kids, and suddenly I'm looking after everybody else's. You know, if you've got little kids, we love your kids, don't get me wrong. But don't ask me to be in the crash. We have amazing people who love children and are happy to be in the crash. Goo-goo-goo, ga-ga-garing, and changing other people's children's dirty nappies makes me wretch. Anybody else? And if I'm honest, my attitude stank as bad as those nappies when I was on that road. Where's the parents? That's all I can think of. Where's the parents? I mean, they're listening to that. Yeah, they're doing a bit of this. Children on top babies. Children on top babies. And I'm here and they're in the service every week and they aren't even on the rota. I'm getting all excited and excited now. My face, my attitude spiraled week on week while I was on that rota. I shouldn't have said yes. I should have said yes. I should have just accepted my limits, graciously said no thank you. But I felt pressured. I didn't want to seem uncaring or unhelpful. They said they needed me. They handed me a rope. The church handed me a rope that I should never have taken hold of. And I eventually let them down. I couldn't cope anymore. So I can't do this. And as a church, we know the huge personal benefit of being involved in church teams and ministries. Our discipleship goes into overdrive when we start getting stuck in. But we will ask you, invite you, but we will never pressure you to get onto serving rotas and teams that you just aren't talented and gifted to do. That's okay. We appreciate that we all have limits. Nowadays, you know, when people come up to me and say, Helen, I know you're busy, but would you just mind if it... I'm like, I do take a moment nowadays to discern and to think. And nowadays, maybe it's because I'm a bit older, I'm brave enough to ask for a day to think about it, if I'm unsure. Or just there and then, I'll just gently say, I don't think I can do that, because I know it's not within my healthy limits. I'm going to be a pain. Nobody's going to really want me on team after week 3. It's not a lazy thing. It's a I know my limits thing. You're allowed to say a polite no, as well as your yeses, folks. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. There have been opportunities in the last couple of years even just to head up Christian projects, lovely projects. I really have a heart for them. Join national committees, wow, flattering. To speak in other churches, lead local ministers' meetings and all of that sort of stuff. Just this last year or so, my heart would have said yes to them all. And I had to assess my limits and often, sometimes reluctantly, say a healthy no thank you. And And finally, church, as followers of Jesus, we need to model and we need to teach healthy boundaries in our everyday lives and decisions. You want to prepare your kids for the world? Help them to set Christ-like boundaries without guilt. You see, no boundaries and you end up doing what everyone else thinks you should do. No boundaries and you end up doing what everyone else wants you to do because sometimes you just want them to like you. Just not confident enough to stand up against it and say, no, it's not me. I don't think I'm going to be any help to you at all. Oh, go on. No, I don't think so. You don't have to give all 101 reasons. Just no. We live in fear, don't we, of disappointing people, being criticised. So it's really vital, folks, to pause and consider the long-haul response to, as opposed to what's the easiest, quickest solution now. And often that will be to say yes and end up on doing something at work or here or wherever we are that we were never intended to do. Folks, humanity has been ignoring healthy limits, breaking boundaries, crossing lines with God and each other since the garden in Genesis. We get confused about where we end and someone else begins. But with proper boundaries, limits, I know whose I am. I know what my purpose is. I know where I'm going and why. But I also know what I am and what I am not responsible for before God. See, the world's problems and needs will always be greater than your personal supply. People will always test your boundaries every day. You can see some of their faces even now. People just want what they want, don't they? Your time, your emotional support, your money, whether it's family, the boss, your co-workers, or sadly, some church folks too. Know and embrace God's gift of limits, and you will thrive. And you'll do the things that you were destined and called to do. Would you bow your heads with me? Thanks for listening so well. You know, sometimes it can seem as if living within boundaries and limits isn't in our best interests or even in the best interests of God's mission. But they are. More than we can possibly imagine. When we trust in His goodness by receiving His limits as gifts and expressions of His love, we mature in wisdom. Father, there is so much we could say on this subject, but I have limits, and I've even gone over my limit today. So Father, I pray that whatever has resonated with us this morning, whatever your Spirit needs to do in our lives today, we want to be open to His touch and direction. Would you help us to look again at some of our boundaries, to reassess how we care for ourselves and support others? For those of us who are carrying so many people at this time, would you help us to know what to do, what to lovingly do in order to gently move forward or even get free without causing unnecessary hurt or carrying unnecessary, un-Christ-like guilt. For those of us who are struggling with the limits of seasons, current circumstances, life situations, would you help us to change our perspective? Holy Spirit, would you nudge us out of our despair, our loss, our grief, for the things that we were once able to do, the things we once were. And would you help us to find a new outlook, a new purpose, new peace and joy in the middle of the limitations that we feel? Would you help us to walk well alongside others? We know there are times when we have tried to walk for them, and we know that doesn't help in the long run. Father, I pray that we would always be generous, hearted people in every way. But we ask for your wisdom and discernment, so that as every growing healthier disciples of yours, we would be good stewards of the time, the abilities, the resources that you've blessed us with. And may we declare your grace, your goodness, and your kingdom good news, even